Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandra, and here at Boho Jewel we do lots of creative and crafty things. So I had a question from @CraftyGrannyT. I don't know if, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. It's Tania or Tanya from Australia. Very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. Because I have thought the same thing sometimes. So she asked, like, I buy a lot of yarn from thrift stores, secondhand stores, but they don't have the labels on them. So when you get your yarn, right, you always have the label and it tells you the weight of your yarn and what size knitting needles or crochet hook you should use. So what happens if you go and you find buckets of yarn, or maybe somebody gifts it to you and you don't know what the weight of it is? You don't know what size crochet hook to use. It's a problem, right? And I love that because I too shop at thrift stores a lot. And there's one place here in Greensboro, Reconsider Goods. If you live near Greensboro, go check it out. They're amazing. They have all sorts of beautiful thrift store things as well as lots of secondhand crafty things. So I feel the need for the answer to that question. And so I looked into it and I found several different methods and techniques, and I found one that I like the most, and I've been testing it out with a few different sizes of yarn here, and I'm gonna share it with you now. So here we have my lovely messy art table. Welcome to the downstairs. This is how we live. So I have a few different weights of yarn. This is one that I am going to use for a project specifically, so stay tuned for that. This is one that's been hanging out in my basket for a while. I can't remember why I bought it. And then this is one that I've been working with, and then these are a couple I've been working with too. So I still have the tags, the labels on these. So that is how I tested this theory. So let's get into it. Oh, and also, she's not a minimalist, you guys. Like most of these crochet hooks are like, I probably have 3 of every size because I always forget. I forget what I already have. Hashtag ADHD. So the website that I found that I really liked the most is Crafty's Haberdashery Arts and Crafts. And they have a really easy to read chart that also allows a little bit of wiggle room with the amount of wraps per inch. And so if you don't know what wraps per inch are, which I also did not know until I looked into this, it is how many times you can wrap your yarn around something per inch. So, you know, you wrap it around. So from 1 inch to the next, how many times does it wrap? And that's going to give you a good indicator of your yarn weight. And then you can decide what hook size you need. I like this chart because, again, it leaves a little wiggle room. I've seen things where people are like, wrap it around a ruler, wrap it around a large needle, etc. But then what is a large needle? What is a large hook? Because I have these knitting hooks, so on and so forth. Obviously, they're all different sizes, right? Which makes it confusing. So I think this is the best chart that I found for consistency. But you'll notice I have 2 different rulers here. I have this this yardstick that I use because I don't use rulers very much. You know, that's just not the kind of art that I do, but I do use rulers to cut papers with and things, so she comes in handy. And then this is my little trusty ruler. You might recognize it from my drawing video where we did the 1-inch boxes. But you can see there's a big difference in size there. So I'm going to show you what I found with that in mind. So we're going to start with this yarn, and I'm going to start at the 1-inch mark right here, which I know is hard to see, but we're just going between these 2 darker lines. Okay, and I'm actually going to work right to left because it's just easier to get the yarn on the ruler than trying to wrap it that way. And I'm going to line up my little fuzzy tail there with the bottom of the ruler on the number 2 line, and we're going to wrap it around. And as we wrap it, you're not trying to wrap it too tight, okay? You're just nice and snug as a bug in a rug, getting them wrapped up next to each other. We don't want it to overlap. We just want them close to each other, but we don't need them to, you know, strangle each other either. Just kind of nice and cozy, but not too much personal space. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so then we are at that 1-inch mark, so we're going to stop right here. So now we count how many times we have wrapped, okay? So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now we're going to wrap it on this one. Again, just lining it up there with the bottom as much as possible, my little frayed end, and we're going to wrap again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it keeps trying to layer. 10, 11, 12, 13. So about 13. A little bit of wiggle room, maybe 14. Okay, so about 13 or 14. So what I like about this chart is that it says a 4 or medium yarn, right? This one, which is what this one is, a 4 or medium yarn would wrap anywhere from 9 to 12 wraps per inch, which we got with this one. It was 12, right? So spot on there. And then the next lighter weight, which would be a 3-ounce yarn, it would wrap 11 to 15. And so we got we got 13 on this one, right? 13 or 14. And one thing I've noticed is that this yarn is actually a little bit lighter than some of the other 4-weight yarns that I've used. The texture of it is a little bit lighter. So I like that it gives you some wiggle room there. So then the hook that it recommends for a 4 would be, for a 4-weight, would be a 5.5 to 6.5 hook. For a 3-weight would be a 4.5 to 5.5 hook. So you could use kind of just meet in the middle, use a 5 hook, which is what I have been using with this yarn to get these dishcloths. And I do want them a little more tightly woven, so I'm using the 5. But you know what? If you used a 6 weight or a 6mm hook, it would also be okay. It's just if you use the larger hook, it's going to give you a little bit of a looser weave or size, right? And you can see the difference in the hook sizes. Like there's a pretty good difference. So when you're working on projects, if you are just making dishcloths or scarves or something that doesn't have to be very specific with the pattern, don't stress too much about that. Like that is okay. Both of these will work. The larger one's going to give you a little bit of a looser stitch than the smaller one. Okay, so something to keep in mind. So now we're going to test this theory on this one. This one is a 3-weight. Where did it go? It's a light yarn, and it calls for a 3.5 to 4mm hook. So let's see how many wraps per inch we get with this one. So on this one, I got 13 wraps, not including the little tail right here. So it went 13 times, which is more than our 4-weight yarn, which makes sense because it's thinner. And for the 3 or lightweight yarn, again, it says 11 to 15 wraps per inch, and you would use a 4.5 to 5.5 crochet hook. So here is my 5, here is my 4.5. So again, I don't know, do I have a 5.5? I think I might. I think it's one of these, but the numbers wear off on these as comfortable as they are. So anyway, I digress. So again, you can see a slight difference in those because there's only a half of a size difference. So far this has been pretty consistent. I would say err on using a smaller ruler rather than a yardstick, just for simplicity's sake. So we're going to get her out of here now that you can see what I'm talking about with this. So let's try this mystery black yarn, which is very, very soft. I don't know why I bought it. I don't know how it ended up in my basket, but anyway, we'll use it. So this one I got to 10, and you can see just a teeny tiny little bit of space there still. So I feel like I could get an 11, but it feels almost like a 10.5 just because the yarn's a little bit fluffy. So about 10 or 11 wraps per inch, which tells me that it's probably a 4-weight yarn, 9 to 12, right? So this just goes to show you too, these are both 4-weight yarn. But you can see how this one's just a little fluffier. So then it just comes down to the yarn type as well. Just kind of trust the process. And again, so you would use I would use a 5.5 to 6.5 hook. So for this one, I would probably go with the 5 or 5.5. And this one I would go with a 6 or 6.5, just so that it doesn't get too tight and I feel like I'm struggling with it. So now let's try our big chunky yarn. So without looking at what it says on the tag first, let me open her up and pull some yarn loose and see what we have. So this one's only going to take just a few wraps, I think. So we're going to place that on our 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, and doesn't really want to go for 4. We're going to say 3, possibly 4. So for the 3 to 4 wraps, what it says on this chart is not available, but it is right underneath the 6 or bulky yarn, which is 5 to 6 wraps per inch. So this one they're saying is a 7 or jumbo yarn, and you would need a 15 millimeter or larger hook. And let's see, where are we? And so that is what it recommends right here. Oh, sorry. So a 15 millimeter hook, right? So a 15 millimeter hook, and do we have the weight on here somewhere? Do we? I ordered this because it's part of a pattern that I want to do. So yeah, I guess it's just a jumbo yarn. I don't even see the weight on there. Wait, there it is. So a 6 is super bulky, but it's also super bulky. So let's see, do I even have a 15 millimeter hook? So I have a 10 millimeter hook, so you can see the size of that, and I think I am definitely going to go ahead and get a 15 millimeter because I think for the project that I'm going to do, since it's a pattern I haven't done, I'm going to try that. But you can see, so the main thing is, right, we want the hooks to be an appropriate size. Like I could probably use this, but it might end up being tighter than I want it to be. So keep all of that in mind. So as you are buying your yarn, I hope that is helpful. I am going to link the page to this website, to this chart where I found this for you guys to download. I'm not gonna like create a chart based on this and tell you to download it like it was my own creation, because that's just not cool. So I hope this was helpful. It was helpful to me, and I think this is a really valuable chart to have. Let me know how it works for you guys, what you find works best. And again, if you have any other questions, I am happy to keep learning, because clearly I don't know all the things yet either. So your questions help me to learn new things too. So thank you, Tanya, for submitting your question, and I hope that answers it, and I hope you have lots of happy crochet adventures in your future. So if you guys enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give me a thumbs up, help boost me a bit in that old algorithm, and I will be posting lots more creative and crafty tutorials very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Go make cool things.